"I'm leaving you for someone who actually knows how to take risks," she said, her voice cool as steel. My name is Owen Maddox, and that was the moment I knew she had no idea what kind of risks I'd already taken behind her back. The living room was quiet, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock we'd bought on our 10th anniversary. Clara stood there, designer handbag slung over her shoulder, keys dangling from her fingers. Her posture was rigid, chin raised slightly, the same stance she took during corporate presentations. I recognized it well after 14 years of marriage. "His name is Damien," she continued, when I didn't immediately respond. "My boss. We've been seeing each other for months, and he's shown me what I've been missing all these years with you." I nodded slowly, watching her face for any sign of the woman I'd married. There was none. Just this cold, calculating stranger wearing my wife's features. "And the investments?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. She hadn't expected me to jump straight to the financial implications. "I've moved them, all of them. The joint accounts, the stock portfolio, everything. Damien has connections with private equity firms that will triple my returns within a year." I sank into the leather armchair. The one Clara had always complained clashed with her carefully curated decor. "I see." "That's it?" "I see." She seemed almost disappointed by my lack of reaction. 14 years together, and all you can say is, "I see." I shrugged. "What would you prefer? That I beg you to stay? That I cry? Throw things?" Clara scoffed. "I expected at least some fight from you. But then again, that's always been your problem, hasn't it? No fight. No ambition. No vision." "When did you do it?" I asked, ignoring her jabs. "The transfers." "This morning. It's all done, Owen. I've left you enough to live on while you figure things out. I'm not heartless." She checked her watch, the Cartier I'd given her for our last anniversary. "My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce papers. I've taken what's mine. The rest is details." With that, she turned and walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. She paused at the threshold, perhaps waiting for me to call her back, to plead with her. I said nothing. "Goodbye, Owen." The door closed behind her with a soft click. I waited, counting to 100 in my head, making sure she was truly gone. Then I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message to my lawyer and longtime friend, Greg Morley. She did it, exactly as we predicted. His response came back almost immediately. "The trap is sprung. I'll start the paperwork." I smiled for the first time that day. Clara had no idea what was coming. 6 months earlier, I'd noticed the first signs. Clara had always been dedicated to her job as marketing development lead at Stratovia Biotech. But suddenly, she was attending conferences that weren't on her official calendar. Dinner receipts appeared on our joint credit card from restaurants she'd never mentioned visiting. And then, there were the late-night calls from a number I eventually traced back to Damien Rusk, her ambitious, recently divorced boss. I wasn't surprised by the affair itself. Our marriage had been cooling for years, especially after we'd learned we couldn't have children. What surprised me was how careless she'd been, as if she didn't think I was smart enough to notice, or perhaps she simply didn't care if I did. But I was a financial advisor. Noticing patterns and protecting assets was literally my job. The night I found a hotel receipt in her coat pocket, I made my first move. I didn't confront her. That would have tipped my hand too early. Instead, I began quietly restructuring our investments. Clara had always been disinterested in our financial planning, happy to let me handle it, as long as there was always money when she wanted it. It was simple enough to create a private trust in my name only and transfer the bulk of our actual assets there, leaving the visible accounts looking normal but vulnerable. I also added a dual authentication requirement to our major accounts, something I told Clara was just an extra security measure the firm was recommending to all clients. She'd signed the papers without reading them, too busy texting someone who I was now certain was Damien. It was a risk, certainly. If I was wrong about Clara's intentions, I could always reverse everything, and she'd never know. But 14 years as a personal investment advisor at Solara Financial had taught me to trust my instincts about people and money. And everything about Clara's behavior in recent months told me she was planning an exit strategy that would leave me with nothing. We'd met at an investment conference in Seattle. I was presenting a workshop on ethical investing, and Clara was there representing her previous employer. She'd asked the most incisive questions in the room, challenging my positions with a confidence that immediately attracted me. We'd argued passionately over drinks afterward, and by the end of the night, I knew she was special. Our early years together had been beautiful. We'd planned our careers together, bought our Craftsman home in Portland, traveled to vineyards in France, and hiking trails in New Zealand. We'd tried for children for 3 years before learning that it wasn't medically possible for us. The grief had changed Clara. She'd thrown herself into her work after that, climbing the corporate ladder with single-minded determination. I'd supported her every step, believing we were still a team. But somewhere along the way, we'd stopped being partners and became two people simply occupying the same space. The signs of her affair with Damien became increasingly obvious. She volunteered for projects that required direct collaboration with him. Her phone was always face down now, notifications turned off, password changed. She worked later and later, coming home smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I gathered evidence methodically. Email confirmations she'd forgotten to close on our shared laptop. Hotel bookings that coincided with supposed business trips. Duplicate expense claims I found while preparing our taxes. I didn't need all of it to confirm what I already knew, but I collected it anyway, sensing it might prove useful. When Talia Rowan, Clara's best friend, showed up at our house a day after Clara's dramatic exit to collect some of her things, I knew phase 2 of my plan had begun. "She just needs some time," Talia said awkwardly, not meeting my eyes as she filled a suitcase with Clara's clothes. "This is all very sudden." "Is it?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe of what had been our bedroom. "Seems pretty well planned to me." Talia fidgeted with the sleeve of one of Clara's blouses. "She mentioned something about financial transfers. She wanted me to ask if you've received any confirmation requests. Apparently something is pending." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen displaying a pending authorization message. "You mean this?" "Yeah, I got the notification. Just haven't approved it yet." Talia's eyes widened slightly before she looked away. "I should finish packing." She left quickly after that, and I knew she'd report back to Clara immediately. The clock was ticking now. That afternoon, I met with Greg at his downtown law office. We'd been friends since college, and I trusted him implicitly. He'd been prepared for this meeting for weeks. "So she actually did it," he said, reviewing the transfer attempts that had been automatically flagged and held by the security protocols I'd put in place. "Tried to clean you out completely." "Everything but the checking account," I confirmed. "She left me about 3 months' worth of expenses there. Her version of generosity, I suppose." Greg whistled low. Cold. "Do you have the full documentation package we discussed?" I handed him a USB drive. Hotel receipts, emails, text logs I was able to recover, and the financial transfer she attempted this morning. "It's all there." "Perfect." Greg plugged the drive into his computer and began scanning the files. "This is more than enough to file for divorce on grounds of financial exploitation and abandonment of the marriage. We'll move quickly while she still thinks she has the upper hand." We spent the next 2 hours outlining our approach, drafting documents, and setting our counter strategy in motion. By the time I left Greg's office, the initial divorce filing was ready to be submitted first thing in the morning. 3 days later, Clara showed up at the house unannounced. Her composed facade had cracked, replaced by barely contained fury. "Why can't I access our accounts?" she demanded the moment I opened the door. "What have you done?" I stepped aside to let her in, maintaining the calm demeanor that had always frustrated her during our arguments. "The transfers were flagged as suspicious. The system is designed to prevent exactly the kind of thing you were trying to do." "Those are our investments," she snapped. "I have every right." "They're our marital assets," I corrected her, "and attempting to transfer them without mutual consent is actually illegal in Oregon, as I'm sure your lawyer has now informed you." Clara paced the living room, her heels digging into the carpet. "I need those transfers approved, Owen. Today. Damien has connections, opportunities that won't wait." "I'm sure he does," I replied, sitting down on the couch. "But I'm afraid I can't help you. The accounts are currently under legal review as part of our divorce proceedings." She stopped pacing. "What divorce proceedings?" "The ones my attorney filed yesterday morning. You should be receiving the papers soon." I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I also need your house keys back. Since you've chosen to leave the marriage and establish residence elsewhere, continued access to the marital home isn't appropriate." Clara stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You planned this," she said slowly. "You knew what I was going to do. Let's just say I noticed patterns. It's what I do professionally, after all." Her face contorted with rage. "You passive, pathetic man. Do you think this changes anything? Do you think this will make me come back to you? To this boring, safe, small life? I don't want you back, Clara. I just want what's fair." She grabbed a crystal vase, a wedding gift from her parents, and hurled it against the wall. It shattered spectacularly. "Fair? You wouldn't know opportunity if it slapped you in the face. Damien is going places. He takes risks. He has vision. What do you have? A comfortable job and a retirement plan." I watched her melt down with a strange detachment. "I need your keys, Clara. Then I think you should leave before you break anything else." "You're nothing," she spat, throwing her keys at my feet. "A small man with small dreams. I should have left years ago." As she stormed toward the door, I called after her. "I've also filed for a restraining order given your violent behavior. My lawyer will use today's incident to support that petition." The look she gave me could have melted steel. Then she was gone, the door slamming so hard that the windows rattled. I immediately called Greg. She was just here. Destroyed property, verbal abuse, the works. Let's expedite that restraining order. A week later, I received an anonymous email requesting a meeting at a coffee shop several blocks from my office. Curious but cautious, I arrived early and chose a table with a clear view of both the entrance and the emergency exit. A woman in her 50s, with short silver hair and horn-rimmed glasses, approached my table precisely at the scheduled time. "Mr. Maddox? I'm Janice Tolliver, HR Director at Stratovia Biotech." This was unexpected. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Please, sit down." Janice glanced around nervously before taking a seat. "What I'm about to share with you could cost me my job, but I believe it's the right thing to do." She placed a USB drive on the table between us. "This contains email exchanges between your wife and Damien Rusk. They go beyond an inappropriate personal relationship. They've been sharing proprietary company information with external parties, information that constitutes trade secrets under federal law." I stared at the small device. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because the board is building a case, but it's moving slowly due to Damien's connections. Meanwhile, I've heard through the grapevine that your wife is attempting to claim significant assets in your divorce." Janice pushed the USB closer to me. "This gives you leverage. I'm not suggesting blackmail, but But information is power, I finished for her. She nodded. Exactly. What they've done could constitute corporate espionage. That carries serious penalties, including potential criminal charges. After Janice left, I took the USB to Greg's office. We spent hours reviewing the emails, and what we found was damning. Clara and Damien had been sharing confidential research data with a competitor, apparently in exchange for promises of executive positions once they jumped ship. It wasn't just an affair, it was corporate betrayal of the highest order. "This changes everything," Greg said, leaning back in his chair. "Her lawyer is demanding 65% of all assets, plus long-term alimony. With this, we can not only deny those claims, but potentially counter for damages." The next day, Greg sent Clara's attorney our counter-proposal. Clara would receive a one-time settlement of $45,000, relinquish all claims to our property and investments, and sign a non-disclosure agreement. In exchange, we wouldn't share the incriminating emails with Stratovia's board or the authorities. Her lawyer called within an hour, sputtering with indignation, until Greg emailed him a sample of the evidence we possessed. The tone of the conversation changed dramatically after that. "My client will agree to your terms," he said stiffly. "She can sign the papers tomorrow." "Today," Greg countered, "by 5 p.m., or the emails go to the Stratovia board and the FBI's Corporate Crime Division." Clara signed everything by 3 p.m. The divorce was finalized in record time. I never directly told Stratovia's board about Clara and Damien's activities. I didn't have to. An anonymous package containing copies of the most damning emails found its way to the board chairman's office 3 weeks after my divorce was finalized. Damien was quietly forced to resign. Clara, tainted by association and the sudden divorce scandal, was let go shortly after. The last I heard, she was living in a small apartment across town, abandoned by Damien once their scheme collapsed and his reputation was damaged. I didn't feel the need to track her movements or celebrate her downfall. Justice had been served without me having to become vindictive. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. To my surprise, Stratovia approached me about consulting on their internal financial transparency protocols. Apparently, my reputation for ethical financial management had reached their new CEO. It was during those consultations that I met Rachel Yates, their corporate ethics counsel. She was brilliant, principled, and possessed a dry wit that made even discussions of regulatory compliance entertaining. Using a portion of the trust funds that Clara never knew existed, I established a scholarship for students studying financial ethics and corporate transparency. The first recipients were selected a year after my divorce, and watching them pursue careers dedicated to making the financial world more honest gave me more satisfaction than any revenge could have. Rachel and I began dating 6 months after we met. Unlike Clara, she asked questions about my work, challenged my thinking, and shared her own professional passion for creating more ethical corporate cultures. We took things slowly, both of us having learned hard lessons about rushing into relationships. On the 1-year anniversary of Clara's dramatic exit, Rachel and I were having dinner at my house, our house now, as she'd recently moved in. She raised her wine glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said with a warm smile. I clinked my glass against hers. "And to the risks worth taking." Later that evening, as Rachel fell asleep beside me, I reflected on everything that had happened. Clara had been right about one thing. I did need to take more risks, but not the kind she and Damien had taken. Shortcuts, betrayals, stealing what wasn't theirs. The true risks worth taking were the ones that made you vulnerable in the right ways. Loving again after heartbreak, trusting after betrayal, building something new from the ashes of what was lost. I hadn't lost a wife. I'd found myself again, and that was worth everything.